Alright, so House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 2, we begin in King's Landing in chaos. And now suddenly everybody wants to do their job in King's Landing, and you can see it's no longer fun and games to Aegon now that one of his own has been taken. And we see Aegon in his rage destroy the old Valyria model that his father Viserys worked so hard on. In the next scene, we see Aemon searching the castle, kind of looking for clues as to what happened.
Yeah, it looks like Aemon has a lot more sympathy than the last season. He's quiet.
Yeah, it kind of looks like he's seeing the repercussions of his actions, right?
Yeah, it looks like he's almost like changing.
And then as he's searching, Aemon happens to find a coin underneath the table. And when we were watching it live, it was too dark and I couldn't see. So I actually asked her, like, what did he pick up? I couldn't even see. And she's the one who told me it was a coin. Then in the next scene, we have a conversation between Otto Hightower and Alicent Hightower.
What is this, like 7 minutes and then he's already being an ass?
Pretty much, yeah.
Don't worry. It's just a kid that time.
And I think Otto's the only person that's like really good at keeping his emotions intact, and he expects everyone to be like him, but yeah. I think like his entire family is just feeling the pain of what's going on. And once again, Otto explains things as if he's playing chess. Otto keeps trying to tell people to just focus on the long-term game.
He actually believes this, like,
yeah.
Even though it happened, like, no, like, you know, Rhaenyra's shitty for doing that, but he doesn't know, like, well, where were all these people? What were they doing?
Yeah, exactly.
My son is heir to the Iron Throne! And where were you? The Lord Commander of my Kingsguard.
Then we're brought to another Green Council. And now Aegon is losing his mind. He's running around, he's throwing things, he's inventing new slogans for Rhaenyra. Then we have Larys coming in with some information. He states that they have found the perpetrator, and it looks like they found blood carrying Jacaerys' head in a sack. Then you can see everybody getting skeptical of who is actually behind this. Otto then tells Aegon that it doesn't matter, that they're going to blame Rhaenyra anyways. Then Otto suggests that the funeral service for Jaehaerys should be public so people can see what Rhaenyra has done. Then next we cut to a scene of Helena in her room, and you can see she looks absolutely devastated and traumatized about what happened. Alicent then convinces her that it's their duty to be part of the funeral service. The funeral service for Jaehaerys then begins, and as you can see, his body is on display for the people of King's Landing to see. This enrages the people, and you can see people labeling Rhaenyra as Rhaenyra the Cruel. You can also see that they indeed did find blood. Blood immediately tells Larys that Daemon hired them for coin, and that Cheese was also a part of it. Even though he doesn't remember his name, he does say that it was a rat catcher that helped him do it. We then see Rhaenyra in Dragonstone as her council breaks her the news of what happened to Jaehaerys. And we can see that Rhaenyra is appalled and mortified upon hearing the news.
She brings up Helena's name too, how she would be the last person to have something done to, especially her child.
Yeah, as a mother herself, she says, like, why would I do something like that? We can see upon hearing this news that now people are really starting to question what is happening and what is going on. As we can see, somebody in Rhaenyra's own council is questioning whether she did order this or not. And as Daemon is sitting there saying nothing, we see Rhaenys give him the absolute death stare, while Rhaenyra and her council are trying to figure out what happened. Rhaenyra then comes to her senses and notices that Daemon is not saying anything as well.
He's just looking around as everyone's putting in their 2 cents.
Yeah.
And usually he has.
He always
4
usually
cents.
has. Yeah. And this next scene with Daemon and Rhaenyra is probably one of my favorites in this episode specifically. It's very reminiscent of some of the conversations that Daemon used to have with Viserys. But as you can see, Daemon has a different type of relationship with Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is now coming to realize that as much as she wanted to, that she's unable to trust Daemon. And we can see here that Rhaenyra is obviously upset and angry. And I even think that she starts saying things that she knows herself not to be true. She accuses Daemon of being faithful only to himself, which we know is not true. We know that Daemon loves Rhaenyra. We know that Daemon has done so much up until this point for Rhaenyra. When she says this, rightfully so, it makes him extremely angry. He smashes and throws the cup on the table. Daemon then explains, was he not the one who crowned her?
Folly, to give up my brother's throne to the traitorous lies of my throne! Daemon! Mine!
He then explains to Rhaenyra, as he did many times with Viserys, that the things that he does are for them. Because we know that Daemon, although painted as a monster by others, really loves his family. In scenes like this, we always kind of feel for Daemon as a viewer, because we know that his intentions, when it comes to his family at least, are always pure.
Yeah, especially her.
Rhaenyra then calls Daemon pathetic, in which, to nobody's surprise, that doesn't sit very well with him.
After Rhaenyra tells Daemon, "You're pathetic," he runs off like he always does, and passing to wherever he's running off to, he passes his daughter Baela, and she kind of sees that he's pissed or something's going on, so she says father, and he just ignores her.
Baela then enters her room after the argument, and as she's walking in, she notices the smashed cup on the floor. Rhaenyra then requests that Baela take her dragon Moondancer and surveillance the area around King's Landing. Rhaenyra wants to make sure that if any moves are taken next, that they would be able to see them coming. She then tells Baela to be very careful and to stay high because they cannot afford any further mistakes.
Very motherly.
Then, in one of the coolest scenes visually, Daemon does his usual exit on Caraxes. I can't even lie, scenes like this just make me really want a dragon so bad. In the next scene, we see Aegon passing Helaena in the hall. And this scene is another reminder of how alone everybody is in their own suffering. Aegon just gives Helaena a look and just passes without saying anything. Then we see Criston Cole surveying the castle, reflecting upon what has happened. We get a new look at young Aegon and Viserys, and we see Rhaenyra spending some quality time with her sons. Alicent then takes another bath. I feel that these scenes of Alicent taking baths are very symbolic as to how she feels about herself. We then see Criston outside of Alicent's room debating which mode of Klinger he wants to activate. And then I'm not completely sure whether there is a different pronunciation for their names, but I'm just going to refer to them both as Eric. And if we didn't already hate Criston Cole enough, what he does next makes him even more unbearable. Criston then takes all of the guilt that he feels about everything that happens and decides to throw it all on Eric. He then commands Eric to go kill Rhaenyra by himself. And while the man is simply just trying to eat a meal, Criston Cole decides to send Eric on a suicide mission. And honestly, in this scene, I had already hated Criston Cole, but if you do not hate Criston Cole after this scene, something is absolutely wrong with you. He then questions Eric as to where he was when Jaehaerys was murdered. When he was the one. Then we have a nice wholesome scene between Jace and Baela. It's good to see them interacting. I feel like as a couple and as people, they go really well together. Jace then says how he misses Luke. Insane, brother. And in the next scene, we have great value Aemon Targaryen. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, the glaze in the scene is insane. Aemon talks about how he discovered the plans of Daemon and how he is actually honored that Daemon sees him as such a foe. And as Aemon is pillow talking in the brothel, he does state that he apologizes for killing Luke and that he actually is sorry.
It is weird seeing him act really soft. It was different seeing him curled up in this lady's arms like a baby, getting served. It looked like milk.
Yeah, it did.
Being sad and apologetic.
Yeah.
Instead of the angry, revengeful kid that he is.
I think in this episode you see that everybody is feeling a sense of guilt, and majority of the people are walking around not trying to show it, but are suffering in private.
Yeah, he even has his eye patch off in this scene, which I don't think he's ever had it off. Yeah. And then it goes to a scene of Hugh. I'm not too sure at the time if this is significant or not. I'm guessing it will be later down the line. Then we have another scene of Alan, and we get to meet his brother Adam. So the next scene we have of Rhaenys and Corlys kind of just lounging around. This scene just once again reminded me how underrated Rhaenys is as a character. When you think about it, her and Daemon are extremely powerful figures. Rhaenys at one time had the best claim to the throne. She is a dragon rider. Her dragon is one of the larger, more seasoned dragons. Her husband is one of the wealthiest, most powerful people in Westeros. She is older and wise and is one of the glues holding things together. After this, we go back to Rhaenyra at Dragonstone. We see her in what seems to be her library, brushing up on some history, and as she is there, Mysaria is brought to her.
And personally, I thought this conversation was one of the more interesting ones. Then after that, we get the shortest preview of Moon Dancer ever. I mean, this thing was so short that you couldn't even really tell who it was or what it was. And then after that, we see that Aegon has sentenced all the rat catchers in King's Landing to death. And then we see that even the dog is a bit upset about this. And then after this, we see the absolute roast of Aegon by Otto Hightower. I mean, this guy is fed up. Which is ironic because I'm surprised nobody has been this fed up with Otto at this point.
Yeah, that's where he draws the line, is the rat catchers.
And this scene was actually weird to me because I don't know if Otto is just fed up with not having control or if he is genuinely concerned with what is going on.
Yeah, he steps out of the hand role and starts acting like a real grandfather.
Honestly, this argument reminded me of a boomer versus Gen Z type of argument. Otto brings out every fancy word he can think of to insult Aegon. Bro actually went through the whole thesaurus and dictionary just to insult his grandson. Aegon then lets Otto know of the most brilliant genius idea that Criston Cole has come up with. It's safe to say after this, Otto loses his shit. Otto then refers to the plan as a prank, which is actually hilarious. But when you think about it, it actually almost worked, but we'll get to that later. And it seems as if Aegon wasn't that taken back by everything Otto was saying until Otto mentioned Viserys, his father. And we see time and time again that this is a real soft spot for Aegon. After Otto says this, he tells him to remove his pin. But then he gives the pin to Criston Cole, which kind of makes Otto right.
Otto looks really defeated in this part. Aegon kind of shows his true, like, Targaryen, like, crazy side, taking the pin, giving it to
Criston, of all people.
Yeah, and he's even confused, like, wait, what, me? Like, that's not what I wanted.
And it seems like we've reached a strange point in the storyline where it seems as almost everybody is doing things out of spite.
It's crazy because all the disrespectful things that Otto Hightower is saying to Aegon, he's not disrespecting his grandpa back. Like, he's doing, like, kind of shitty things, but it's not, like, in a disrespectful way. Like, you can tell it's spiteful, but it's not disrespectful. Like, he could have said, like, you're the worst hand.
Yeah.
You don't deserve this. You know, he's just, give me your pin, give it to this guy. Nothing, like, disrespectful.
That is true, because we always get the reference to Joffrey, and Joffrey would have handled something like that probably way worse.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot more chaotic than that. So we do see good sides to Aegon. It's not like Aegon is just a completely terrible person. Like, he does have kind of a bad nature, but you can see that he also has a heart. He has been put in this position that he didn't even want to be. In the next scene, we see Rhaenyra grant Mysaria her freedom. She has decided to give her passage to Pentos, in which she can escape and start a new life. Once again, this really reminds me of scenes with Daenerys, where Daenerys had found mercy for people, and what we've also learned many times is that mercy will grant you favor and respect of the people you show it to. Then we see, as Mysaria is leaving, she notices that she sees Eric walking back up to Dragonstone. And now that we know that Daemon has left the castle, we see Rhaenyra in her chambers, and then we get put through the dilemma of trying to decide which Eric is Eric. As we see them move about the castle, we know that one is going after Rhaenyra, and we know that the other is just going about his business. Making his way through, the Green Eric finally arrives to Rhaenyra's chamber. And just as he has the opportunity to slay the queen, his brother shows up. And now these poor lads have to have a fight to the death because Criston Cole is an idiot. Eric and Eric then duel it out inside Rhaenyra's chamber. And I mean, this scene was sad and it sucked to watch. To see these men, who are both loyal to their causes, have to fight each other to the death was just a terrible thing.
It was hard too because you can't tell which is which. When one's getting hurt or sliced, you don't know, like, do I feel bad because it's the green Eric or
the black Eric? Yeah, it's tough. Throughout the whole scene, it's just back and forth, and I think that's what makes it cool and suspenseful, is that you can't tell really exactly what's happening. And finally, the Black Eric ends up prevailing, but most likely feeling guilty for having to slay his own brother. He then apologizes to Rhaenyra and takes his own life. After this, Otto then vents to Alicent about how pissed off he is. And in this scene, they actually mention the notorious Darren. I know a lot of people online have been questioning and asking where he is. Here's the answer.
Yeah, she tries to tell her dad, Otto, about her sins, and he's just so fed up with all of them that he's just like, I don't care about your sins.
Yeah. And then they end with what to me is one of the most significant scenes in the episode. As we see, the episode started with Aegon throwing a fit and crying. It ends with him completely breaking down while Alicent walks in. And this just goes to show how much Aegon is suffering alone. From Otto bringing up the stuff about Viserys that hit a soft spot, to now his heir and his son being killed within the conflict, we have to remember that Aegon originally did not want the throne. He was one that was always advocating for Rhaenyra to just have it. And even when Viserys passed, he tried to run away and avoid the coronation. He never wanted all this. He was put in this position. Even when Alicent was explaining that Viserys actually chose him and named him to be heir in his dying breath, he didn't believe it. And now he has to go through all of this suffering when he never wanted it in the first place. I think this brings a real human side to the people that we try to paint as villains.
Yeah, you almost start to feel bad for him, but then at the same time, that's not what Rhaenyra wanted.
So we see that all of these people are being forced in positions that they don't want to be in. And a lot of terrible things are happening because of it. I see that Alicent is now at a point where she has become her father. Instead of comforting Aegon, she leaves and goes to shag Kristen Cole. And that concludes Season 2, Episode 2. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll see you guys next week.